I think the bottom line is that tokenized gold is not just a new form of gold or better gold, whatever people want to call it. It's a potential catalyst to this gentleman's point.
Why is China quietly pulling the trigger on something that could shatter the US dollar overnight? And why is Andy SCHECTMAN saying gold and silver prices are now entering the most explosive phase in modern history? BRICS is accelerating, US debt is spiraling, and global trust in the dollar is evaporating faster than anyone expected. Stay right here, because in this interview, Andy reveals the signals that every gold and silver holder must understand before the next leg of this super cycle hits.
The gold market globally operates on a fractional levered system, and we're seeing some of that start to crack right now with the amount of deliveries. And that system basically operates where a small amount of physical metal backs large volume in paper claims. That's the rehypothecation that you speak about. In other words, each ounce is sold over and over and over and over again because no one ever stood for delivery. And that's why it's worked for decades, because few ever did. In fact, when you and I start talking about the others in 2020, the group on the COMEX that was standing for delivery, that was the central thesis of everything I was saying. You're like, this is so weird, Dunnigan, because all of a sudden, it went from 0 to 100, where no one was standing for delivery. Now you got this big group standing for delivery. But now you have central banks repatriating gold. Remember all the banks that we talked about, the German Bundesbank, the Dutch National Bank, the Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Czech National Bank. They all repatriated their gold from the Bank of England and the New York Fed. It's about trust. And investors now are shifting, as you mentioned, to this tokenized gold. And the more I dig into the offers or to the possible opportunities that have been presented to me, the more I begin to think, yeah, this may actually have a profound effect because it gives fully allocated and instantly transferable and fungible ownership of the real metal. Not only does this undermine demand for paper gold, which is, I think, been exposed by much of the world. They see the rehypothecation. They see the Achilles heel of the system is standing for delivery. It also gives very intriguing options for collateralization of your metal that many of us who have, a large portion of your assets in gold and silver come to a point where you want to buy a home or you want to do something, you need collateral. And the banks, well, how do I know you got metal in your closet and blah, blah, blah. It's not, you can't use it. This does. But what I could see happening actually because of this transparency and because of this instant validation and transferability and collateralization, I think you could see a lot of investors exit the paper system for allocated tokenized gold, at which point the system could face that sudden collapse triggered by unorderly unraveling of unhedged, rehypothecated exposure. And I think the bottom line is that tokenized gold is not just a new form of gold or better gold, whatever people want to call it. It's a potential catalyst to this gentleman's point for the collapse of the entire paper gold system. I agree with him because paper promises that have been exposed for being BS, I think this is the antidote for it. And if done properly, could rewrite the entire ecosystem, if you will. I think it's very intuitive question, and I am inclined to believe it. They've been pretty successful at hoodwinking us all. But that's why I said if done right. To me, when speaking to the folks about this that I'm in discussions with, I said to them, there are just a very few things that need to make this work. Number one, it has to be transparent. Obviously, that's the whole premise of blockchain. So that's nothing profound. But it has to be transparent in the respect of who's holding the gold. Is it an institution like Brinks or the Royal Canadian Mint or some major mint, the Perth Mint, the U.S. Is it who's holding it? In what form is it held? Who's auditing it? And the key to it all, in what form and how easy is it for me to take delivery? And that's the most important part. In other words, any exchange that doesn't allow delivery or any platform that doesn't allow delivery, it's fugazi. You can throw it right out the window right now because it ain't going to work. The whole premise of the whole reason the LBMA and the COMEX have worked, even though they've rigged the system, is that they allow delivery. Even though no one ever stood for delivery way back when, they do allow it. That is the key. And if you want to really come out the gates screaming, who owns it, who audits it, what form, and how easy and what form can it be delivered? Those are the things that could very quickly tip the scales. And I think when a system loses trust, and I think this has been an overreaching theme that you and I have talked about for a while, this whole country, this whole thing, you know, I mean, it's not just the country, it's everything about it: judicial system, electoral system, immigration system, wokeness instead of meritocracy, all the stuff we talked about ad nauseum for years, especially during the previous administration. And then on top of it, sanctions, well, you call them tariffs, but they're actually sanctions masquerading as tariffs. The way that this administration, and granted, I'm glad he won and I would vote for him again, but there are some things he is doing that is eroding trust, even with our allies, by placing tariffs on Mexico and Canada and the EU. And, you know, there are things, this whole system is about, I think, a fraying of trust. And so if you want to make this work, it has to be completely and totally trustworthy. And that would be being very open and transparent about all of those things, including who's auditing it, how easy it is to see the audits, and if I want to stand for delivery, in what form, and how easy is it for me to do that. If those things all became relevant, then yeah, because I think we're reaching a point in time where the COMEX and the LBMA are losing trust globally. And that's why you see everyone standing for delivery the way that they are, because these countries don't want paper promises anymore. I think they want the real thing in their possession, and that's more important than anything else to these players. So, yeah, if done the right way, to your point, which is a valid one, then I think it has legs. It really does. I would rather hold it myself, have some for that ease, but I think this would be an antidote for the COMEX and the LBMA, in the respect that the COMEX and the LBMA are the ones that are losing credibility. The only reason to have it on a blockchain as an investor, I guess, would be for ease and collateralization. If you don't need collateral and you don't care about, the benefits of having that type of platform, I think you're better off holding it at home, myself, or burying in a hole in your backyard or whatnot. But, part of running a business, done again, and I think this has maybe been one of my strong points for a long time, or maybe not. I mean, I kind of feel like it has been in my own mind, but that's not even up for debate. All I'm just simply saying is that running a business means if you don't learn to roll with the changes, you get rolled by them. And I think it's pretty well determined now that things are moving to tokenization. I mean, you look at the chairman of the SEC just came out and said all markets will be tokenized very soon. And I think that we are moving in that direction. You can see the Stablecoin Act, the Genius Act. Things are moving to that platform where it's a system that will be about transparency and about the ability to collateralize and to use things that are tokenized. Do I like it? No. I would rather be back even before cell phones, and we had to go to a payphone to call your girlfriend or whatever. It's like, I would just say to you that doesn't matter. The toothpaste is out of the tube, and either you roll with the changes or you get rolled over by them and you become an afterthought. So I think it is happening. To me, the best place for it, if the world wanted to challenge the West, the way to do it is to develop a system like this where there is transparency, deliverability, and low friction. These things are happening, and whether the West does it first or not, I just think it doesn't matter. It's moving in that direction. Now, as far as the average person, yeah, I guess there are benefits to having it tokenized as well, if you can stand for delivery. Otherwise, everything is just, again, up in the cloud. So there is the middle ground there. The middle ground is you have your physical position at home or wherever you store it, and then you have something tokenized to give you collateralization potential or the ability to access it much more easily. So that to me is about as middle ground as you get. Yeah, sometimes I ask myself, because, well, it's true. I ask myself, is it wise to say these things that I believe that kind of go dark, and people say, he's a blowhard, he talks. But it's nice. I mean, I started talking about this unit well over a year ago, maybe two, I don't remember, but talked a lot to you about it and all the shows that I did about it because it's not as prevalent in everything I talk about these days, but for a good 2-3 years, it was. I remember 2019, 2020, and I kept talking about the unit and the Belt Road and all this stuff. My wife said, you never stop talking about this. People are going to get annoyed. I said, but you don't understand. I'm the only one talking about it for the most part. And I see it so clearly. I believe it. I don't care. I'm going to stand out on the limb and say it. And it was cool to be right, to be proven at least the majority of what I said, a lot of it happened. And nothing ever happens the way we think it's going to, but variations of it. But the unit is something that I think is happening. And well, they just rolled out the beta test. But before I cover the unit, what I believe is the rails of the unit is exactly what China is doing to expand the internationalization of the digital yuan. Now, they're saying that not to piss off President Trump. Period. And what is that internationalization? It is using the Shanghai Gold Exchange to build a series of multi-jurisdictional vaults throughout the Belt Road Initiative, starting in Hong Kong. What is the reason they chose Hong Kong first instead of Shanghai? Well, Shanghai was the only one. Next one is Hong Kong. Why would they do that? Because if gold comes out of China, it must go through Hong Kong to come out. Okay, cool. So the first trade they did, United Arab Emirates and China, the two of the four initial developers of the M-Bridge technology, which the unit will run across, which is a cross-border payment system that is not compatible with the SWIFT system. So there's no sanctions available there. And it settles in 7 seconds at a 98% reduction in fees. Now, the idea is right now, the way that it's set up before we talk about the unit is that China can buy oil from United Arab Emirates and they will pay for it in digital yuan. As of right now, the UAE could go to the Shanghai Exchange in Hong Kong and stand for delivery. China has made it immediately convertible into gold without having to switch to dollars first. So UAE says, I really like gold for that. So go ahead, give me your yuan. I'll switch it into gold immediately. Boom, done. These rails, these vaults will be built all throughout the Belt Road and Asia, Africa, South America. We already see vaults expanding in Singapore just built a new one, and St. Petersburg just built a new one. And of course, they're building a BRICS platform. And we have all of these vaults in the United Arab Emirates and in Brazil, all around the place that will have gold that are all connected to the same system. Well, this is the rails for the unit, as far as I'm concerned. And the unit would be best described as a settlement unit of account concept. So in other words, it's not a common currency, right? It is a settlement unit of account where it's a basket of 40% gold, deliverable to central banks if they need it or want it, and 60% BRICS plus currencies. And this is the currencies of the BRICS plus nations. They will need to maintain a strong monetary ecosystem. It benefits the countries themselves instead of benefiting the United States. That's number one. And if I want gold, well, I can stand for delivery. It is a wholesale settlement instrument, if you will, for governments and very, very large institutions. It is not a retail platform. That's BRICS Pay. And interestingly enough, BRICS Pay, which is B2B, business to business or business to consumer or bank to bank, small bank to small bank, is like a credit card system where if I live in Brazil and I'm going on a trip to UAE, I can just pay on my BRICS Pay app and bang, it's instantly done instead of having to convert and do all of this stuff. But I listened to an interview by the guy who developed, and he said, we are right now in negotiations in China right now to roll this out to the Belt Road Initiative. That's what they're going to do with the M-Bridge or the unit, where you're opening up to 75% of human population, 150 countries, not just the BRICS nations. And this is the part that the naysayers and the poo-pooers have missed continuously. Sergei Lavrov came out and said, no, we're opening this up to everyone in the world except the the United Nations, excuse me, the United States, the European Union, and Great Britain. They can't use it, but the rest of the world can. And so it is a basket-backed collateral anchored system, token, used to settle trade invoices. The key of it that I don't think I talked enough about, but that really makes sense to me, is that the unit will make measures the BRICS plus currencies in gold terms instead of you're measuring gold in currency terms the way it is now, where you measure it in dollars. All of these currencies, their value will be measured against gold. Gold is the reference in all of this. That is the important part to remember, is that gold is the reference in all of this. And in essence, what it's going to be able to do is allow countries to trade with other countries using this settlement vehicle, which allows for immediate delivery in gold. And all of it will challenge the hegemony of the West, because sales or transactions will chip away at the transactional status of the dollar, devaluing it. And ultimately, gold being the anchor to all of this, which has destroyed the performance of the 10-year Treasury without any counterparty risk, will start to massively chip away at the reserve status.
If Andy's warnings opened your eyes, then don't walk away now. Hit the like button so this message reaches more people, subscribe to stay ahead of every major move, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the updates that could protect your wealth and your future. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next video.